Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's given me great pleasure to welcome Premier Li Keqiang, Madam Chang Hong and a number of the Premier's senior colleagues to New Zealand. Mary and I very much enjoyed the opportunity to host Premier Li and Madam Chang Hong to dinner last night, and we've had very productive and frank discussions this morning with the Premier and his delegation. We are two countries that are far apart in distance and size, but growing ever closer in the things that matter: personal relationships, cultural ties, economic ties and business. Premier Li's visit marks 45 years of diplomatic relations and comes 3 years after our comprehensive strategic partnership was launched. This morning we discussed a range of bilateral issues. We also exchanged views on a range of regional and international matters of mutual interest, including the importance of regional stability and the benefits of free trade. I'm delighted to be able to announce that we've agreed on a date to begin the talks on the upgrade of our free trade agreement on the 25th to the 27th of April. The FTA with China has been an enormous success since coming into force. Our two-way trade has since 2008 nearly tripled to $23 billion, creating jobs and opportunities for people in both countries. The upgrade will allow us to modernise the FTA to take account of changes in our economic relationship since the FTA came into force. We've also announced a range of other initiatives, including those you've seen signed by ministers. To highlight a few, we've got an action plan for cooperation on climate change, new access for New Zealand chilled meat to the Chinese market, and plans to cooperate in the Pacific on fisheries and development. We've also signed arrangements to enable deeper cooperation on China's significant Belt and Road Initiative and the important and growing area of e-commerce. These further underline the depth and the breadth of the relationship between New Zealand and China, and they will be of mutual benefit. I'd now like to invite the Premier to make some opening remarks, and then we'll take a few questions. Premier.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister English, friends from the press, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to pay an official visit to New Zealand together with my wife at the invitation of Prime Minister English. This is my third visit to New Zealand and my first as the Chinese Premier. And during this visit, I have felt the results of the rapid development of our bilateral relations. I have also felt the important benefits that FTA has delivered to our two peoples. The purpose of my visit this time is to work together with New Zealand to strengthen bilateral relations. In particular, we announced that we will carry out the FTA upgrading negotiation between us. This is the first of its kind that's been done between China and a developed country. This is the highest level bilateral FTA between China and a developed country. This will give a strong boost to trade links between China and New Zealand, and it will send a positive signal to the world and to the region that our two countries are committed to free trade. This is a clear position of our two countries. Meanwhile, we have also discussed a whole range of issues. We are committed to work together to uphold stability in the Asia-Pacific and peace in the world. In particular, the backlash against globalization and against free trade is on the rise. In this context, we believe that it is important to strengthen free trade. And on this basis, we can have more consultations and avoid frictions. And this is important to peace and stability of the region and beyond. Prime Minister English and I had an extensive, in-depth, friendly and candid discussions, and our topics covered a lot of issues, including involving our two countries, the region and the world. We also touch upon personnel exchanges between us. I want to thank New Zealand for providing facilitation to Chinese tourists to New Zealand, and we will advance tourist exchanges in orderly fashion. Prime Minister English told me that you do not need to worry about the overflow of Chinese tourists. All of them are welcome here. They will build more tourist facilities to welcome Chinese tourists. And I believe our people-to-people exchanges will help enrich our bilateral relations and provide solid foundation for our bilateral relations. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're now going to take a few questions from the media. The first question is from the New Zealand media for Prime Minister English.
Kahoran Dan from Television New Zealand. Mr. English, did you raise the issue, you talked about regional stability in your opening remarks, did you raise the issue of the South China Sea, and I'm wondering if you got any sense from China about whether or not it was concerned about the Trump presidency and whether that was putting any added pressure into that region?
The issue was discussed along with, New Zealand's expectation that any matters there are dealt with according to the international rules. We did have some discussion about the US-China relationship, and the Premier was very positive about it and pointed to the economic interdependence between China and the US.
The next question is from the Chinese media for His Excellency Premier Li.
I have a question for you, Premier Li, that is about China-New Zealand relations, which has been in front among China's relations with many Western developed countries. What kind of exemplary role can be set by China-New Zealand relationship? Well, as I said during my visit, the two sides have made many firsts once again. For instance, the upgrading of China-New Zealand FTA. Let me say that once again, this compared with China's FTAs with all developed economies, the China-New Zealand one is of the most advanced level. Between China and New Zealand, the two-way trade is rising rapidly, more rapidly than the respective economic growth of both countries. And New Zealand has many products of competitive strength, such as dairy products. 1/3 of New Zealand dairy products go to the Chinese market. And of China's imports of foreign dairy products, half comes from New Zealand. When I visit other countries, including your neighboring country, they all express the hope for more Chinese imports of their dairy products. But because China and New Zealand have a sound trade relationship in this regard, I believe China and New Zealand, not only in dairy products, but also in other areas, can maintain rapid growth of trade relations. Thank you.
The next question we will have is from the New Zealand media for Premier Li.
Thank you, Premier Lee. Welcome to New Zealand. Thanks for coming all the way down here. My question, I'm Lloyd Burr from News Hub. My question is just on the Belt and Road Initiative that you've just signed a deal about. How would you like New Zealand to be involved in the Belt and Road Initiative? Are you interested in infrastructure projects in Auckland, for example, in Northland where China Rail has signed an MOU? And just related to infrastructure, New Zealand's regulators launched a probe into Chinese steel dumping in New Zealand. Will this have an impact on the trade relationship between our two countries? Thank you.
Well, the journalist friend from New Zealand has asked your Prime Minister about the South China Sea issue. Let me take the opportunity to say a few words. The Belt and Road Initiative of China includes a 21st century maritime Silk Road, and this Silk Road will go through the South China Sea. The stability in the South China Sea and peace there are good for all parties in the South China Sea. On the whole, the region is stable. South China Sea has freedom of navigation and overflight. The coastal countries, including between China and other coastal countries, there are some differences on islands and reefs and maritime limitation, but all sides believe negotiations are the way out, and the direct negotiations between China and the related parties are going smoothly forward. We believe if we build up this maritime Silk Road and with freedom of navigation and overflight, now each year there are over 100,000 merchant ships going through this part of the waters with no incident of piracy attacks. This in itself shows the South China Sea countries have the wisdom and capability to manage and resolve their differences. Of course, the Belt and Road Initiative also includes some on-the-land routes. Our principle is wide consultation, joint building, and shared benefits. And in that spirit, we welcome all countries and international organizations joining the efforts to enhance connectivity. During my visit this time, the two sides have signed some MOUs and have built consensus. We will first gather consensus to see how we can proceed with specific projects, to see whether we have the possibility of engage on specific projects. As for the dumping of steel and iron from China to New Zealand, I don't have the relevant information, but I can tell you that China does not accept wastes from other countries. China will also not dump wastes in other countries. If there are some illegal companies doing such things, then the two countries can work together to combat this kind of rule breaching and immoral practices. Thank you.
The final question will be from Chinese media for Prime Minister English.
From the People's Daily, my question to Prime Minister English. In 2008, China and New Zealand signed the FTA. It has entered into force. Ever since then, New Zealand's export of dairy products to China has been growing rapidly. In this year, for instance, the 32% of your formula products go to China, while the food safety is now a focal issue for the Chinese government and people. So my question is, how are you going to ensure the quality of New Zealand dairy products exported to China? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. We had a number of years ago a couple of incidents related to food safety quality, and first can I just acknowledge the responsiveness of the Chinese government in dealing with those issues, with their real concern for Chinese consumers. New Zealand learned a number of lessons from those and have implemented a much upgraded process for ensuring that the dairy products and any other products going into China are of the quality that the Chinese consumers would expect. We need to keep in mind that under the free trade agreement there's a wide range of other New Zealand products going in there. Particularly the health related products are much sought after, and they certainly meet, along with the formula, meet all the highest standards. We've now got a much deeper and more connected technical relationship with the Chinese authorities over food safety, and that's a real benefit to New Zealand and certainly a benefit to Chinese consumers.
对不起，刚才可能我没有听清楚。
Well, perhaps I didn't really get the point of the question from New Zealand journalist. He I think he was mainly asking whether China has conducted dumping of iron and steel in New Zealand. So let me use this opportunity to answer it again. Well, the steel products of China, 90% of them are consumed domestically for domestic demands. Only 10% are exported, so it's only a small fraction. Even so, given what's happening in the global landscape of steel products and raw material products, we know there is an overall oversupply globally. Therefore, China, starting from last year, we've been phasing out outdated production capacity of over 60 million tons of iron. We do have some export of zinc-coated steel to New Zealand, but it's estimated that this amount of China's export accounts for less than 5% in New Zealand's total import of zinc-coated steel. But actually, most of New Zealand steel imports come from other countries, not China. So China is not dumping steel products in New Zealand. Likewise, actually 50% of China's dairy products imports are from New Zealand, but we haven't said that New Zealand is dumping dairy products in China. Therefore, we believe to address the trade deficit issue, we need to open-minded to each other. Or what I mean is galvanized sheet, Chinese exports of galvanized sheet to New Zealand, only accounting for a small percent of New Zealand total imports of that. According to international statistics, opening up wider would be good for free trade. Actually, China has a deficit with New Zealand, but we haven't seen this as a negative factor. We are expanding our two-way trade, and in this process there can be some individual differences between the two sides, but in these cases what matters is to adopt a prudent and objective approach and pursue two-way dialogue and consultation to properly handle the differences. In my view, China-New Zealand relationship, including our trade relationship, is mature.
And Prime Minister English, thank you.